Welcome to the Pestle, reviewing and breaking down the movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by Goose and Maverick. Let's kick the tires and light the fires.
Welcome, everybody, to the Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by Scorcher 2, the blockbuster sequel to the summer hit that melted your face. Scorcher 2 in theaters now. Welcome, everyone, to the Pestle. I am Wes.
And I am Todd.
And we're filmmakers. We make things, and then we talk about how they get made and what we see when we're watching a film, and we try to break it apart from the standpoint of people who, like to work and create and write and make music and all kinds of things. Yeah, I don't know. We got a lot to talk about other people who are also making and writing and creating those things, about making and writing and creating those things. Yeah, that's the kind of episode this is going to be. We're going deep. It's turtles all the way down. Todd.
I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
What are
That's the best part of the whole.
It really is. What are we covering, man?
Today we are taking on Tropic Thunder. So if you haven't seen this film, please pause this episode and go watch it. Right now it is streaming on Paramount, so you can see it there, or you can rent it anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to put it too. We're taking it on. We're taking on Tropic Thunder. We'll look at a handful of things, talk about some of the cinematography, selling satire. We'll also dive into the story and writing and discuss satire versus tropes and other such stuff and things and stuff.
I'm glad we're talking about those things because I don't really know what they mean. So you can educate me. Heard the words, don't know what definitions are. So a quick synopsis of the film. Through a series of freak occurrences, a group of actors shooting a big budget war movie are forced to become the soldiers they are portraying. Directed by Ben Stiller, screenplay by Justin Theroux and Ben Stiller, and Etan Cohen, and cinematography by John Toll. It's featuring Ben Stiller as Tugg Speedman, Robert Downey Jr. as Kirk Lazarus, Jack Black as Jeff Portnoy, Jay Baruchel as Kevin Sandusky, Brandon T. Jackson as Al Pacino. Sorry. Danny McBride as Cody, Nick Nolte as Four Leaf Tayback, Brandon Hu as Tran, and Tom Cruise as Les Grossman.
In the winter of 1969, an elite force of the U.S. Army was sent on a top-secret assignment in southeast Vietnam. The objective, rescue Sergeant Four-Leaf Tayback from a heavily guarded NVA prison camp. The mission was considered to be near suicide. Of the 10 men sent, 4 returned. Of those 4, 3 wrote books about what happened. Of those 3, 2 were published. Of those 2, just 1 got a movie deal. This is the story of the man who attempted to make that movie.
Cutting. From there, it's just batshit. And that's such a funny intro to me just because the tone, right, is very stark and it's very grave. And by the time you get to the end of it, you realize this is just one big gag, and it's setting up one big gag of like all these men didn't come back, and one got a book published and a movie deal, and this is them trying to make that movie. It's not even the movie. Yeah. This is the story of that man. Like, it's just, this is the attempt. It's beautiful, man, as Tom Cruise famously once said. And so, dude, 17 years later, Jesus. We're going to try not to offend everyone listening. We'll do our best, but this movie touches on some really dicey stuff. And so we'll tap dance as well as we can. But, all that in mind, do you still crack up? Like, does it still absolutely lay you out?
I lose my mind. It's so funny in all the ways. It's so great. I love that it starts out with a bunch of trailers for everybody who's in the movie. And then, so when the movie actually starts, you're like, is this the movie? Or is this another trailer? Because then you hear Nick Nolte and you're thinking, wait a minute, is this a trailer? No, okay, the movie has started, but it starts with like 5 or 6 trailers for films. So we're introduced early on, what we're in for.
And the first time watching it, did everyone groan in the theater? Because no one knows who Brandon T. Jackson is the first time you're watching this. You're just seeing like a commercial for an energy drink, which in 2008 was like a big deal. And you're just like, oh, advertisements in the movie, come on. And then by the end of the ad, you're like, that was weird. Like, it was a booty sweat.
Booty sweat?
Like energy drinks have really jumped the shark now, and then suddenly you're in on the joke when Kirk Lazarus or whatever is Scorcher, right?
Scorcher 5, Scorcher 6.
And so everyone groaned in theater watching this the first time, and it's just suddenly you got, and then you're in on the joke after that.
I mean, it was hilarious from the very beginning, and it's over the top. I mean, I'm not privy to really dramatic actors who might be hard to deal with, but that opening scene is fantastic. Where they know that all this napalm is going to explode, or not napalm, but the explosion's going to happen, and they got one shot at this, and yet Lazarus goes to the bathroom, and then the explosion happens, and he pops out of the porta potty, like, what just happened? Like, this is over the top. So I've been thinking for years. I've been wondering, like, why does this work? Like, why can they pull this off? And it's not, what everyone, like, it's not. I mean, they do blackface in this movie. Like, it's wild, and yet everybody's okay with it. And I've been just wondering, like, why? And there are a couple things that I think maybe might be the reason. The first one is that everybody who's famous in 2008 is in this movie. Like, everybody. I mean, main characters. You got Jack Black, you got Tom Cruise, you got Matthew McConaughey, you've got, Ben Stiller, of course, you've got Robert Downey. I mean, like, Nick Nolte, everybody. So it's kind of like you have all of Hollywood. Maybe the only person they're missing is oh my gosh. Whatever. They're missing a few people, but like, basically you have all of Hollywood, and all of Hollywood is saying we're in with this, we're in with this. So you're kind of like, okay, maybe I'm okay with this, because the entire, like, everybody I know right now who's famous, Brad Pitt, maybe they should have had Brad Pitt in there, but whatever, doesn't matter. Point is, they have everybody in there. So it's kind of like, okay, maybe it's okay to be okay with this. And then, also, they also have another black guy as part of the crew, as part of the team, who is calling out the bullshit of Lazarus, what he's doing, right? So you're kind of like, okay, you got there's a voice there who's saying this is effed up and you're an idiot, and yet he beats it into, he's like, no, this is, I am this, So I think those two things together might have made it okay. And I'm curious to see if there's anything else that you're thinking of why, but those two things made me feel okay with laughing at certain things. Like when he's talking about getting collard greens and stuff, and this guy's like, what are you talking about? You're from Australia. Be Australian, So good. I think that everybody in this film really, really embraces the type of character they are, and the first thing I'll say before anything else is that Ben Stiller is fantastic at everything that he does. I think one of the biggest reasons is that it's noticeable that he has really good taste. Aside from being able to make a movie like this, or even imagine and write a movie like this, which he wrote the screenplay, or was part of the screenplay writer, and he directed it. Aside from the skill of being able to do that, he just has good taste, right? And you can tell, not just because of this movie, but almost every other movie that he's done, there's like a thing that he brings to it that's like, oh yeah, okay, that I get that, or that's pretty cool. It's never really, even movies like Night at the Museum, that is like completely, different. There's like this error that he has on screen that he kind of elevates it in a certain way. And it could be heavy, but it doesn't have to be. It could be entertaining, or it could be funny, or it could be heavy. And he has this way of doing that no matter what. I don't know what I'm going to get on screen, but he has really good taste. And I think that knowing that he directed it and he wrote it, I feel like I'm in good hands going through a film like this, where the next thing that's said or done could be really offensive. I feel like I'm safe with him, even though that's, all the wild stuff that happens. It's absolutely hilarious. I've heard, hilarious things about him calling Tom Cruise and wanting him to be Lex Grossman, and he's saying, okay, I'll do it, but I have to dance and I have to have fat hands. And he's like, what? Okay. And so he writes that in, and then Tom does his thing, and he's absolutely perfect. He disappears. I have to really look close to see Tom Cruise. It's so great. I think it's hilarious. I think it's it points to some things, but I'm not looking for that at all. I'm just entertained the entire time and laughing the entire time. I mean, I was in my wife was sleeping and I was in bed watching it, and I was laughing out loud, like keeping her up. It was great. I really loved it.
It holds up for me as well. Like I crack up.
Good.
I think there's very little that I don't laugh at. Like most of the Jeff Portnoy, the Jack Black stuff, like doesn't play quite as strong as it did the first time you see it. Like him tied up to the tree saying all this, insane stuff to try to get down. Like that's not quite as funny this time for me, but otherwise I think everything is it's so silly and it's so on its face about what it's trying to be that it's hard not to like laugh along with it. But even at the time this came out, there was controversy. Like Robert Downey Jr., whenever the announcement kind of came through, and you see, I don't know if the trailer was out yet, but the breakdown was basically that Robert Downey Jr. was playing a black character, and people didn't really understand that was the character he was playing. And it wasn't just a black character. It was a white guy playing a black character. And it's this intentional blackface, harpooning. And he got a lot of there was a lot of people up in arms about it. Like, man, this is what's wrong. And a lot of the stuff was exactly what's said in the film itself, that it was like, there's not enough parts for you. Like even the black parts got to go to white people now. And it's like, and I'm sure most of the people who were like on the front end, like upset once they saw the movie, are like, oh, okay, I get it. Like this is, a mockery of some old Hollywood, issues. And this movie is, I mean, it's hard to untangle because of how deep it runs and the commentary and the jokes, the landscape that it's playing with, because it is so. Trope is like this commonly used idea or scenarios that you might run into, right? Tom Cruise at this point is becoming a bit of a trope, where if you see him in a movie, it's an action film, and his action films contain a lot of running and saving damsels in distress, and like that, saving a damsel in distress is a trope, and it's so tropey at this point that it's actually cliche. Like you don't want to do, and cliche is where it's just become a bit of a mockery of itself. Like, and so you can kind of start to draw a line of progression where something that starts as an original idea, saving a woman tied to the train tracks, is really exciting and thrilling the first time you see it happen. And then the second time you see it happen, it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of the 10th time you see it happen. You're like, okay, it's a bit of a trope, but we get it. The hero needs to save the woman. Okay, I get it. The 50th time you see it, it's cliche. You're just like, my God, is there any other ideas that you have? Or is this the only thing you can come back to, right? It's cliche at that point. And it's tired and it's exhausted and it's going to get nothing from your audience but laughs. And at a certain point, maybe you push it so far that it's gone beyond cliche and now it's becoming satire, where you're just like, we're doing it to make fun of all the films that have done this, as a cheap ploy of excitement. And so satire doesn't necessarily need to be that. It doesn't need to be playing on cliches. It could just be knowingly playing up something that is well known in society. So like Kubrick's Strangelove, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Like it's satirizing the Cold War, right? The whole film is very on its face. You can tell from a trailer, like this is mocking, and it's gallows humor for sure, but it's taking this well-known item in society and saying, okay, we're going to just go with it all the way, and make fun of it and try to learn how to live with this doomsday device hanging over all of our heads, right? So satire can do that for you. It can try to take the sting away from something that hurts. And I think that's what this movie is attempting to do. Tropic Thunder is trying to take the sting out of a lot of these tropes that Hollywood plays with. And some of them are maybe cliches and some of them are just that. They're just tropes. And at this point, it's satirizing Hollywood because of how deep some of these wounds and tropes run, right? When you talk about blackface, man, those are wounds. When you start looking at vaudeville and a lot of things that took place during those eras and those early Hollywood days, if you start looking at D.W. Griffith, he's a lightning rod. And the film, I'm sorry, none of this is written down. I tried to take notes, and Todd and I were talking about this beforehand. This is a really hard movie to take notes on. And so I did my best, but at the same time, a lot of this stuff is just going to be off the top of my head. And so if I'm butchering it, I obviously am not doing it intentionally. But D.W. Griffith, had the the movie about the Klan, right? And that became, for him, maybe just a lightning rod to take advantage of and to make a quick buck. Like, it's not clear whether or not D.W. Griffith had any political affiliation or ideology whatsoever. He just saw like, oh, this is interesting. This is something people are kind of maybe still afraid of, but I can put it on screen and make it exciting and cash in. And so he put blackface on screen as well as the Klan as heroes. And that just invigorated the Klan. And suddenly this thing that was dying out became like a really big thing again. And so it's dangerous to play in a sandbox if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And to your point, Ben Stiller has killer taste. And Justin Theroux, also killer taste. He wrote this, and it's interesting that he's not in it. I wonder if part of him was interested in taking a part, or if he really, because his dad is a writer. Like, he comes from writer's blood, so to speak. And it's interesting just to see the things that he's participated in, right? Like, his dad wrote The Gold Coast, or The Mosquito Coast, right? And he is on that show, and I'm sure that is not a coincidence. And so he's clearly got some juice in him. And then the other writer, Etan Cohen, wrote Idiocracy alongside Mike Judge. And so that's a movie that's got a lot to say about society and culture. So clearly the brain trust here writing this were doing it thoughtfully. They weren't just saying, how can we get some cheap laughs? They were saying, how can we try to get cheap laughs at the expense of us?
Can you imagine being in the room when somebody had the blackface idea?
Just like, oh man,
do we go there? Oh, how would
I think? I think we got to do it.
Well, how would we do that?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Let's flesh this out. Like, what? Unbelievable. Yeah.
And then, because if you start with the base of Hollywood is the punchline, then it opens up a lot of avenues to explore. Well, if Hollywood's the punchline, how can we do that in a way that doesn't offend the executives and let them feel like they're in on the joke as well? And also make the actors, let's make us, since we're all actors, well, Ben Stiller and Justin Theroux are actors, and they got to be thinking, okay, if we're going to be writing this, we're the ultimate punchline. No matter who else we drag into this, actors are the ultimate punchline here. And so there's a safety net that if we, the writers, are mocking ourselves first and foremost, everyone else we bring in has to feel safe. Whether that's writers, right? Because you have a writer who wrote Tropic Thunder and he wrote a bunch of lies. And so already, and then that's how we open it too, right? It's the clip that we played, right? This is a story about the making of the movie that we're watching, right? Tropic Thunder is about the making of Tropic Thunder. And so it's inherently, right from the get-go, just tangled up in this knot of inherently self-referential meta conversation. And so right from the outset, you're like, oh. And then within the movie, what they end up making is Tropic Blunder. So the movie that we're watching them make ends up being the basis of another movie, Tropic Blunder. And so it's just like, oh, what's happening? And you just get dizzy trying to describe what this movie is, as literally my head's spinning a little bit right now.
But it's crazy because it's so well written that at the end, the buildup when Nolte's character, when Tayback dives for the trigger of the bomb, I mean, I'm on the edge of my seat, and then to see Speedman, get blown towards the camera. I mean, that's obviously like Mission Impossible.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And then he gets blown to the side. It feels intense. Like it really felt intense to me. More intense maybe even than actual Mission Impossible, to be honest. Yeah. It was great. It was really great. And then they have that moment when Lazarus goes up to him, now with his blue eyes because he took his contacts out, and his blonde hair, and they have the scene that they couldn't get through at the beginning, and it's just I can't feel my legs, it's cold, they're in a puddle. And yet there's this real emotional moment that they actually have, and I feel it. Yes, Robert Downey, but he's still playing a character, but Ben Stiller is Ben, like, I don't know how else to say it, like, I feel safe with him.
There's so much to unpack just in that little bit that you just said. Like, there's the aspect that you said that scene they couldn't get through at the beginning, they're now nailing, and they're only nailing it because it's real to them, right? And this movie in itself is about the nature of acting and how it's all pretense, and what you're trying to do is create real emotions from something that isn't real by pretending that it is real. And that's some of the comments that Lazarus is spitting out to, I'm going to get so tangled up in this, Tugg Speedman, because we're going to be jumping in and out of Robert Downey and Ben Stiller and Tugg Speedman and Kirk Lazarus.
I got it in front of me, so I'm trying to follow. Yeah.
And so that's the nature, and they're also mocking that along the way. And so, yes, we get to that moment at the end, and it is real. It is genuine. You do get choked up because it's such a good moment that's been earned through an hour and a half of runtime. And all that tension is heightened because we also have bought in and believe in the nature of what they're going through is real, that they don't have bullets, but the people shooting at them do. And so there's real genuine anxiety, like they're firing their guns for effect, which is, again, a joke about acting, the nature of acting. It's all for effect. They have no real weapons to use against us, the audience. And so there's just this crazy layered thing that I cannot imagine the amount of like cocaine they had to have been doing to just talk about it. And then you get through all that. Oh God. yeah, I've already lost the other trains of thought because there are some other things that you touched on that I was like, yeah, let's unpack that too.
Well, the tension of the explosion when
yes,
Tayback.
So there's that explosion, and it's so good because the humor of Ben Stiller doing the physical comedy of like which is
throwing the child.
The child who goes end over end. I wonder how many throws it took to get that right. Can you imagine and then looking at playback as this child's like, no, he's a little
so fun.
He's a little wobbly. Can we get him more end over end? Like it's too wobbly.
Put some weight in his feet.
Yeah, put some weight in his feet. And then the comment you made about Mission Impossible, I think that's entirely intentional for sure, because that's the extra layer of like meta conversation is you have Tom Cruise in this movie who is the biggest action star in this movie and yet doesn't throw a single punch. And he's not playing to type. And so this movie is playing against type in 1,000 different ways. Because we don't look at Ben Stiller as an action star either, right? We're looking at him as a goofy comedy guy. And yet here he is playing an action star as a goofy comedy guy. And it's just like, it starts to make your head spin. And yeah, okay.
Can I say one moment that I laughed out loud? Like, I mean, there were dozens, but the one where right after what do you mean, you people? What do you mean, you people? After that scene when Speedman is standing in the river and Lazarus walks up, he's trying to get the map and he walks up to him. He's like, man, you rip. What do you do? What do you do? Is it diet? What do you eat? Really? Oh yeah. Give me that map. And he walks away. It's just, because Ben Stiller is ripped in this movie. He looks good. So I was like buying into it. It just such a great moment. But that scene at the end, just to go back to what you're saying, is like so fulfilling because in a film where nothing is really like we know what's heavy, but we know what's real and what's not real. You know, we're told, okay, these guerrillas, warriors are real, but they don't know that they're real for the most part. And then at the end, so we're never getting anything real from any of our main characters necessarily until the end. And this is right after, and just the balance of hilarious and real or heavy is so great in the end. You have this baby stabbing at Speedman in the back, and then he throws him, and you're laughing so hard. And then, but at the same time, there's this tension, and then the explosion happens that Tayback hits, dives for it. The editing is fantastic in this scene. And then you have Lazarus, who's been wanting to get out of there this whole time, jumping out of the chopper to go save Speedman. It's really, it's real. And then, it's hard not to laugh at the blue eyes, Lazarus's blue eyes. But at the same time, like, they're having this real moment. You can feel it. And at the end, you're laughing too. Like, you're having this mix of emotion at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic writing. I can't even, if I were to sit down and say, I'm going to do something like this, I wouldn't even know where to start. It's just so thought out, every piece of it. And it has to be, because if it's not, then you're in big trouble, because everything about this movie is very right on the edge. And they take it there, and they're not afraid to. I mean, the sheer guts to even think about making something like this, much less going out and doing it, is unbelievable. But they ride that line so well, and the payoff is important too, because you don't want to just have these feelings and or have these emotions and like these reactions to these really crass things and really like almost racial things, not almost racial things, and then not have a good payoff in the end, but they give that to you in the best way. So yeah,
100%. And I think the starting point had to have been, what if we made a movie making fun of Apocalypse Now and the documentary that came out of Apocalypse Now, which is Heart of Darkness, or Hearts of Darkness. I forget. There's one, that's the book, and man, that is a rough read. And then there's the documentary. So Apocalypse, and once you pointed out, I'm sure it's already way obvious, but Apocalypse Now is based on a book, Heart of Darkness. And then the making of Apocalypse Now was so brutal that they made a documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now, adapting the book, right? And so that became obvious fodder of like, okay, well, we have our outline, like but now how do we start to insert all the Hollywood tropes? Okay, well, you need the guy who risked it all, right? Who saved everyone, and the heroic shots. And it's like, okay, and then maybe you just start acting it out. I mean, when you're two actors in a room writing together, I'm sure you start like rehearsing scenes like, oh, this would be funny. Oh no. Looking at clips. What are your favorite war movies? Okay, yeah, let's do that. Who's the most pretentious actors you know? Daniel Day-Lewis. Okay, how do we make fun of him? Yeah, great. Kirk Lazarus. Yeah, okay, but how else can we make fun of? Well, let's give him a little Kirk Gibson. Like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And so you start to play in some really fun territory because Daniel Day-Lewis, and it's funny, we talked the other week about, There Will Be Blood, and we're talking about favorite performances. And Daniel Day, one of his early breakouts was My Left Foot, which is a movie about a handicapped guy. And so that's a really dicey area. And they have this whole conversation about playing those types of characters. And so let's go all the way. Let's have a guy with hooks. So we have a physical, and then we have a mental handicap that we can start looking at and discussing. And and in discussing it, they're being so crude about it. And I think we can avoid saying the R word that, upsets people. But they have a really obvious conversation about that. And it's mocking it. And that starts to get really, really dicey because now you're talking about satire and satirizing tropes versus contributing to the stereotypes and adding harm to those communities who feel harmed, and so that's hard. That's really hard, and it takes I think grace. I made a video about this actually for the University of Texas Department of English that was to be educational and instructive about racial bias in media. And that video was just discussing it and not giving you answers, but just asking you questions about what do you make of Mark Twain in his era using the N-word in his books while discussing racism and innocence of childhood and all these elements. Like, is he making a point? Is he raising an issue to society, or is he contributing to the further marginalization of a marginalized group? That's really hard. It's really hard to bring those issues up without contributing. And comedy is the most diciest of all because you have people laughing, and to the people in those marginalized communities, you have to wonder, are they laughing at me, or are they laughing at the issue? And it is hard. And I think what should make us feel safer in this movie is the fact that Robert Downey Jr.'s character, Kirk Lazarus, is calling out, if you go too far, you're not going to be respected. That's his real bottom line, is you went too far. You went, I am Sam. And that's why you didn't get nominated. That's why you didn't get any awards, is because you're hurting the community. That's really what they're getting at. And this is also why you have a black character calling out, Kirk Lazarus the whole time. He's like, this is not okay. And even whenever you get to the point where you think, they've reached a point of consensus, Kirk Lazarus is like, are we good? He's like, not really. Just because.
Great point.
Just because we had a moment.
It's a small moment.
Yeah.
It's a small moment, but it's important. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I thought maybe we just kind of patch things over. Like, you punched me, right? And we're square. And like, no. Like, there's so much more here. We're not okay. And it's a really beautiful way of getting people to acknowledge, because even if you have someone in theater laughing for all the wrong reasons, they're going to now go through society with this understanding that I Am Sam is not a good representation of acting, and maybe not a good representation of how to have these conversations about mental disabilities, you know? And so they're going to watch more critically these things that they were just laughing about. And so whether or not they like it, they learn something. And that's the beauty of comedy, and the difficulty of making this, because at the same time, these guys are probably feeling the heat just making this. It's uncomfortable. Like, my last film was satirizing some really hard discussions that we should be having that we're not in society. And it's really hard to sit in a casting session and hear some of these things said, you know, for 6 hours.
Oof. Yeah.
And to hear them not land is even worse.
Oh, man.
Right. It's like, ugh. So it's like you're working towards a goal. You have this thing in mind, and you're like, okay, I know it's hard right now, but the end game is pure. Like, I don't know if everyone's going to get it, and we're going to take some, you know, bruises along the way, but I have looked inside and I know my intentions are actually pure. And if I can't get everyone to see that, I'm just going to have to live with that. And that's kind of the price you have to pay. It is a little bit of a scar, a little bit of a mark on your conscience, just because you're hurting some people that you're not trying to hurt. And yet you are doing it, you know, for the right reasons, and you've done the work, and all you can do is just cross your fingers and hope eventually people get there with you. And so I really love seeing some of these lines that are so hilarious, and just like you cringe a bit, like whenever Kirk and Tugg are having this conversation about, you know, his performance in Simple Jack, and he's being so sincere. He's like, man, at times I had to free myself up to be dumb. And like at times, I mean, yeah, I felt like a moron, you know, but I had to go there. And Kirk is like, hey, it's not science, it's an art form. And that's how it feels as an actor. Sometimes you're doing these things that you're like, man, this feels so ridiculous. Even if it's not dicey, even if it's just playing a character, right, who's learning to walk again. And they were like one step away from shooting that one down, of a guy taking his first steps. And it's like, those are real experiences people have, and you can use those things for cheap emotional punchlines. And this movie is trying to take on all these things that are getting cheap emotional applause, whether from the acting community or the performance community, or from financiers who are looking for an easy way, or for writers who are looking for an easy way to get a tear, or an easy way, you know, and that they're playing with all that and just saying, stop. Like, it's making fun of it. And I think it's wonderful. That's one of the things that makes this movie so rich, is because it's self-aware. Whenever you start lining up all the things that it's acknowledging, cheap, crass humor, as the fat jokes, the fart jokes, like all of that is cheap humor, and they're telling you, they're putting that on its face, and they're using it for the cheap humor, but while trying to point out that it is cheap humor, right? Yeah, and that goes in 1,000 different ways. And then it's like the agent shows up, who's doing his job. He's just doing, everyone in this movie is just doing their job. I mean, if you get down to it, brass tacks, like the studio executive, he's just doing his job. He's just trying to make money for the studio, right? That's his job, is to make money. And who cares if it means Tugg Speedman dies? Like, man, we're suddenly back in the black. We were in the red. Now we're back in the black. Yeah. And the agent has to take a look in the mirror and say, do I want to take a G5 and a lot of money, or do I want to help my friend and fulfill my contractual obligation? He fulfills his contract. He takes the G5 and then uses it against the studio, which ultimately helps the studio. But that's the TiVo gag, right? Like, that's just a contractual fulfillment. He thinks he's got a duty to help him. And so
he's so mad about that. I love that they use something that's like such a, like, it doesn't really matter. But it is the driving force of his agent to make sure that his contract is fully realized. It's perfect. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hold on, I need a breath because
I know you're doing great. You're doing great. Oh, and how great is it when the director gets blown up? That moment is it's so good.
Oh.
Yeah. You hear a click, boom. It's so jarring, and it's perfect because, you know, we have been in this safe space this whole time, and we even feel safe being dropped off here because the director is there with them. And okay, we're gonna get through this, even if we know that there's, I don't know if we know right now that there's, you know, people in the woods, but we feel safe, and instantly we know we're not, like, right away.
And that's such another great layer because it's both taking a piss out of directors and honoring their importance to a project. Like, their role is vital. So on the one hand, you have a rookie director who can't control his cast, right? He's in over his head from the beginning. And so he finds this artsy workaround that only gets him hurt. Like, it gets him dead, right? Which is effectively him getting fired off the project. And then we get to see how actors run amok, get all the way up their own butts without a director there to guide them.
Yeah.
And we see how far off the rails it goes, you know? And so it's a really fun way to just say directors, you know, are really just trying to manage madness, and also are a little bit too up their own ass to begin with. Because if he hadn't done that, if he'd really just been more seasoned, first of all, but then two, had a better game plan from the beginning, then none of this would have happened. He would be alive and so forth. It's just...
we wouldn't have Tropic Blunder, though.
That's right. And then, like, the last element of this movie is the way it's letting you in on the joke that actors are doing. They're portraying things that aren't real. And so every character in this film is portraying something that isn't real, and something that isn't truly them. So you have all these actors who are putting on a facade as a means of feeling seen and heard, right? The prime in this case is Al Pacino, right? Playing a character in his real life. Al Pacino is this hetero guy, but the real, whoever he is, the real Mr. Chino, is like, he's gay. He's not hetero at all, but he's covering it because that's what's good for his career, and it's not accepted by society. And so he's doing all these things. He's putting all these fronts. He's acting. His real life as an actor is just another performance. And so I love this other element of, you know, you have this character who can't really be himself until the end, after he's gone something and he's feeling safe to no longer put up this front and this facade. He can stop acting. And so the whole goal of this movie is to get all these actors to stop acting, to just be who they are. And that's why you get to the end. And also Jeff Portnoy is no longer TBD if he's still hooked on drugs, which is a whole other element of, they're making fun of Robert Downey Jr. in a Robert Downey Jr. film. Which is a beautiful thing to allow himself to kind of be portrayed and made fun of. But then you have this actor who's no longer taking joy in fart jokes, right? It becomes his his bane of existence and becomes just another avenue where he weaponizes his addiction in order to get out of an ordeal. And so it's just, God, it's so brilliant in ways that you would literally have to write a book. And then maybe that book could be adapted into a movie.
You need 4 people to write a book. Right. So that...
I think that's all. I'm punching myself out. I got other jumbled up notes, but I don't care.
That's fine. I mean, I called out earlier about the editing in that last scene, but I think the editing throughout is fantastic because it's kind of invisible.
Yeah.
I think we're in the right place, the right time, places at the right time to catch reactions and to catch deliveries, and I think it's really well done.
Absolutely, and it's shot so well. John Toll, who shot Braveheart, he shot a lot of action films, and it makes sense if you're going to really sell a satire that you sell it in the way that it's trying to portray itself. And so it wouldn't make sense to shoot this like you're shooting a buddy comedy where it's super bright and friendly and flat and really tons of 2 shots and wide angles. Like, okay, if we're going to do a wide angle, it's to catch an explosion. It's to catch a fight sequence. And we're going to push the contrast. And so they're selling the motif really strongly to help give you buy-in to the danger and the reality of this world. And then that adds so much wonderful contrast for the comedy to really shine through.
Great point. Shoot it like a war film, essentially, and light it as such. And then when it's funny, it's like, it's almost like a heavy funny, it is, or funnier, honestly. Yeah.
100%, because now you have this really gritty texture and lighting, and these really silly performances are feeling out of place, and you can have them do and say crazy things, and it works because now you can cut to a reaction shot of one of the few characters who are like, you guys are idiots. And so we have Jay Baruchel playing like this low-level actor who's just happy to be here, and every time someone does or says something weird, like Kurt Lazarus saying, "I'm just a little boy playing with his dick when he's nervous." And then we tilt up to reveal Kirk Baruchel like, ugh, like, what are you saying? Like, that gives us permission to laugh because it's insane. And so reaction shots give us so much permission to make fun of and release the laughter valve of like acknowledging that was not okay. Don't say that.
Yeah. I was trying to think of an example here of what you're talking about in the way that it looks. And I think like the biggest thing that I can just think of off the top of my head is this. It's a really simple shot after he kills the panda. After Tuckman kills the panda. I mean, that whole scene is like really crazy and dark and very hard to see. But then the next shot is you just see the panda head. Maybe not the next shot, but you just see the panda head, and then we pan down to see that he's wearing the panda head, which is insane and crazy and wild. But if you think of if it was shot like a comedy, I see what you're talking about. It would be much flatter, and maybe not as the darks wouldn't be as heavy and crushed as they are, and it would look completely different and light and everything. But this feels heavy. Even though it's funny, it feels heavy. And that's another reason why I love it. I hate the lightness of some comedies that's just, there is no weight to it. Yep. And that's why it's not funny, because there is no contrast in what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, and the way that I'm receiving it. I love the contrast of those things. And that's what brings out comedy for me is it's not this thing that I'm in a way that I'm seeing it. It's something else. And that it keeps me on my toes. And so when I get some other feeling or reaction, it's actually bigger, right? Oh, this is funny. Oh my gosh, I was so somewhere else right now, But that moment really describes, I think, to me, what you're talking about earlier.
That's a great call. Damn. Okay. I'll let it go. So, final thoughts, man.
Right. Loved it. I'm really glad that we decided to do it, and I'm also glad that there was like a lot more insight that you had that I didn't have, that really makes sense, because it's hard to understand what I make of this movie.
Yeah.
I know what I make of it. It's hilarious and it's brilliant and it's timeless. Honestly, it's like so good. But I don't know why. And so you put it in really, really great terms that I could understand to like explain that to me.
Nice.
So,
okay.
yeah, fantastic.
Then I'll just cross my fingers that we pushed all the right buttons.
I think so. Yeah.
Nice. What are you going to recommend this week?
I'm going to recommend another film that Ben Stiller was in. He didn't direct it, but he was in it. It's a Wes Anderson film, The Royal Tenenbaums, from 2001. Just fantastic. Maybe one of my favorite Wes Anderson films. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I want to go back and rewatch it, but just really wonderful. And it's just another great example of the breadth of talent that Ben Stiller has, to be honest. Yeah.
Completely agree. Nice one. I am going to recommend another satire. It's called Blazing Saddles.
Oh, nice.
If you think Tropic Thunder is edgy, you have no idea. And what's amazing about Blazing Saddles was a while back, like probably way before Tropic Thunder came out, like the late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. Someone was talking to Mel Brooks and was like, do you think we could make Blazing Saddles today? And he was like, we couldn't make it back then. Like, people weren't happy back then. Like, and it's important to take those risks with the understanding that what you're doing is pure motivated. And Tropic Thunder, I guess my point being that they didn't think they could make another Blazing Saddles, and yet here comes Tropic Thunder. And every time Tropic Thunder comes up now, post whatever, 2015, people said you couldn't get that made today. Even Robert Downey Jr. is like, you couldn't get that made today. And I just don't think that's right. I don't think that's true. I don't think we're giving our culture enough credit, because we're assuming the people that would make Tropic Thunder 2, Electric Boogaloo, would be morons and would be looking to be edgy for the sake of being edgy, not because they would have anything to say. And I don't think that's true. Now, whether or not anyone would greenlight it and fund it, because this is probably not a cheap movie. There's a lot of explosions in the middle of nowhere.
And famous
actors.
Yeah.
And so that would be your bigger hurdle, is just the funding. But just the state of the, entertainment today overall. But not because of the content per se. It's just because, will anybody show up for a big action comedy, for $100 million of this type? Who knows? Because that was probably getting close to the edge then. And I don't know. And now everyone's a little bit more scared of approaching this, but I think the audience reception would be great, even if the timidity from the studios may not have the onions, to put it on the table and really go for it. But I think that the thirst is there. With the right intent, everyone could come together and laugh and make fun of ourselves, right? We could make fun of actors. We could make fun of the man in the mirror, as Kirk, Lazarus, a la perhaps Robert Downey Jr. at the end.
I think the only thing that I would say that might need to change would be that there's not like a single woman in this entire movie.
Yeah, there's secretaries, they're booty dancers, right? They're on the edges.
They don't have any lines or anything.
No. They're on the edge.
They're not really
fray.
in the movie.
Yep.
They're like,
Yep.
So that would be the
And so maybe that's the approach then. Maybe you make one aimed at women and for women, to sit around and laugh at themselves and have guys be nothing but hunks, and just play into all those tropes. Why not?
Yeah. And I think that we have this like aversion to seeing like women in war getting like blown up and stuff, but that's something that could be a Tropic Thunder 2 kind of scenario of like seeing women get blown apart, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know. Equal rights. Anyway, that would be the one thing, I think which should change.
Absolutely. So, okay, stay tuned for next week. We're going to take a look at the new film by the guys who brought us Talk to Me. They have a new horror. It looks like an elevated horror. It's called Bring Her Back. To me, this gives me real flashbacks to the script I wrote a few years ago. So I'm curious how close it dances in that territory. And I'm getting better at not getting like up in my arms about, or up in my feelings about, someone's treading on the same territory. Yeah, they'll do their own thing and I'll do my own thing, and everything's fine. As a writer, don't be afraid to see what someone else is doing in the same sandbox as you're in. It'll be different because it's them. Yours will be different because it's you. Stop worrying about someone took my idea. They didn't. It's okay. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they got next, man. I assumed they would do like Talk to Me too. And so this is exciting that they said we're going to do something else. Yeah. And if you're enjoying the show, don't forget, subscribe, drop us a review, leave us a note, something you want us to cover. And if you want to leave a comment on this episode, you may or may not have an open comment section at the pestlepodcast.com/Tropic Thunder. Keep it civil.
And our quote of the day today is from Robert Downey Jr. I think that the power is the principle of moving forward as though you have the confidence to move forward. Eventually gives you confidence when you look back and see what you've done. That's so right. And I always have to remind myself that, and like anytime I'm starting something and I feel stupid or I feel like I suck at it, and try to tell that to my kids too. Like, guys, you're gonna be bad for maybe a long time, but then you won't be. And you can't be good unless you're bad, or you can't learn something unless you start without knowing it. And so just doing, and actually it's funny because we were just talking about this Robert Rodriguez interview with Lex Friedman before we started the podcast. And in it, he talks about that. He talks about like, I don't know how to make a movie. Like this particular movie I'm working on, I don't know how to make it. And then 2 weeks in, oh, okay, I get it. Maybe the 2 days before the movie's done, now I know how to make the movie. Well, yeah, but you would never have known if you hadn't done it. So you just gotta do. You gotta not worry about, like knowing what you're doing and just do. And this is a great quote from another great, creative mind, so yeah, great call.
Great comment. I agree. Like at the beginning, especially in something like this, it's one thing to be like, I know how to mow my yard, or something more complex. Like I know how to start a business. Like there's so many elements that they're the exact same. Like if you're going to start a tech, company, you're going to run into your own specific problems on this one versus the last one. But a lot of the things are going to be the same. Starting a script, making a movie, even if you're a really good actor doing a new character, like there is no guidebook. Just because you've done 50 before, you don't know until you've done it. And a while back, talking about old cancellations and whatnot, when Kevin Spacey got canceled, Ridley Scott had just finished a film with him. And they were like a month out from the theater, from the release. And he reshot all of Kevin Spacey's scenes and replaced them with, not Christopher McDonald, Christopher Plummer, who's one of my favorites, R.I.P. He shot it in like a week. I think he went and just got because he was like, I've already got the edit. I know exactly what angles I need and exactly which lines I need and which angles. And so he was like, I was blasting through that, and it may not even been a week. It might have been like a couple days because they were just like set up. I need this line. Got it. Moving on. Got it. Moving on. And they just blew right through it. And that's amazing. But if Ridley Scott, having made a billion movies beforehand, his first time through, it still took him 4 months to shoot that film. And then in reshoots, only after he knew exactly what he needed, because he'd gone through the whole process. Okay, now it's easy. Sure. But guess what? The next movie I go to make, I don't know anymore. I'm back to square one.
It's going to be hard again.
It's going to be hard again. And so don't embrace it. I love what you told your son, man. Like, you got to embrace it. You got to be willing to look dumb. Acting is looking dumb and feeling dumb and just committing to that feeling and saying that's okay. Creating art, it's all a risk. And if you're not willing to look dumb and look silly, you will never make it. Whether it's honest art or in the business, you cannot, because you're just never going to be willing to put yourself out there. Yeah.
Well said.
Okay.
Well said. Great quote, man.
Good.
Well, this was fun. This was a lot of fun. I'm really glad that we did this. And hopefully you guys at home enjoyed this. And please recommend us to your friends and subscribe, review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if there's a film you'd like to see us talk about, pick apart, let us know. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll do it. Until next time, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
Go watch some movies. I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
Or are you a dude who's playing a dude?
Well, I know I'm a dude. Have you seen the behind the scenes of that
Go
scene?
again, going 1,000 times. Like, go again. I know who I am.
How did they do it? How could you look straight at Ben Stiller and do that? Or look straight at Robert Downey and not like lose yourself? Oh my God. It's so freaking cool.